Genius versus Prodigy. What an interesting discussion. What's up, guys? I'm here to do a breakdown / live reaction and revisit of Hoops and Anime's Genius versus Prodigy, which appears to be a Blue Lock discussion. And as something of a Blue Lock fiend myself, I have quite a few opinions on this, so I do want to see what this man was in fact cooking. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me, let's go.
Genius or Prodigy?
What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. Another fun fact. This is kind of the current arc of Blue Lock. Oh, wait. Before I get into that, the link to the original video will be in the description down below. Go check out Hoopsandanime channel. This is my first video of his. I literally just subscribed and liked the video. This seems to be a very popular video, too, so I'm actually excited and low-key. I'm really excited to see it. But with it being the case, I yap a lot. Link will be in the description down below, along with a link to his channel. Both will be down there. Go check them out. But all that to say, Genius versus Prodigy. Which one is better? I'm assuming that's what this video is all about, right? What do you want to be, a genius or a prodigy? And I think the answer depends on the situation that you find yourself in. Notably, if you are against a genius for the first time, you always want to be a genius. If we're taking a random genius and a random prodigy and throwing them on the field together, prodigy has no information on the genius, genius has no information on the prodigy, the genius is always going to win. They're unpredictable, they're unstoppable, they're inhumane. If you were to throw Loki against Isagi before Isagi knew what Loki could do, guess what? Bada bing, bada boom, Loki cooks him. But then again, that may be an unfair comparison, right? So maybe I should go with a more even comparison. Throw Loki up against, like, well, maybe not Loki. Let's maybe too high level. Using any of the masters, maybe too high level. But let's say you were to throw Chigiri up against Nico. Randomly. Neither of them have met each other. Nico's going to lose because he has no idea what Chigiri's going to do. Even though Nico is a prodigy, has metavision, all that stuff like that, he would lose to Chigiri. If Chigiri gets the ball, or Chigiri is chasing him for the ball, because Chigiri is a genius, has natural better stats, yada, yada, yada. However, after adaptation in a more continuous game, I would say that a genius, overall, would get to, or begin to fall behind, unless they are focused on consistent innovation. Unless they are consistently focused on evolving or spamming their ability in new, unique ways. Someone like Loki, for example, as a genius, I don't expect to get easily crept or cliffed or anything like that. I think ultimately Isai's going to need repeated exposure, repeated L's to Loki in order to determine Loki. Same thing for someone like Noel Noah. Clearly, Isagi's been a prodigy forever. Kai's been a prodigy forever. Neither of them look at Noah and are like, yeah, I can just beat that guy because I understand him now. No, that's not how that works. So, like, clearly, the geniuses definitely do have the ability to win in the long run, as long as they're consistently evolving or using their ability in unique ways. But if a genius starts to loop a little bit, like Rin started to loop, despite being the strongest, number one in Blue Lock, yada, 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 he clearly cliffed himself. Because he's doing the same thing over and over and over again. And naturally, the Kaiser and Isagi duo have been able to stop him. However, on top of that, you can still give it right back to the geniuses. Because even though Rin was looping the same thing over and over again, he was only stopped by 2 prodigies, not 1. So overall, you may be wondering, okay, Pencil, that's a nice little culmination of like the dichotomy there. What's your actual opinion then? I think geniuses, overall, for right now, because until Isagi can prove to me that a talented learner, or a prodigy in this case, is able to do what he and Kaiser are able to do right now alone, a genius will always be better. Right? Isagi cannot stop Rin on his own. He admitted that. In fact, when he forced Kaiser to work with him by manipulating Kaiser, guess what happened? They still would have fumbled the bag if it wasn't for Gagamaru, who was a completely external factor, but who was also a genius. So Rin, a genius, repeating the exact same thing he did previously, didn't just beat Isagi, a prodigy. He beat 2 prodigies in Isagi and Kaiser, and they both needed the help of another genius to stop him. And I think it's fair to say Isagi and Rin are supposed to be narratively implied relative, with Rin having an edge, because he's a genius. Shido kind of sucks, but like in terms of but that's the thing, geniuses are meant to be like that. However, geniuses are much more reliant on external motivation, I'd say, or internal motivation, because obviously Rin has his own internal motivation to destroy himself. Shido has his own internal motivation to get his you know what Shido likes to do. But essentially, obviously we see a genius like now he fall off a cliff because you know he lost his motivation. So like overall, I'd probably say geniuses are better. Especially considering they're it's like, how do I put this? Here's a perfect example. Geniuses are like playing white in chess. Sure, a good black player, someone who's playing black in chess, will always be able to react appropriately to a white player if they are good enough. But Since geniuses are always the ones making the first move and prodigies are always playing catch up, a genius will always have the lead because the prodigy is always falling behind. A prodigy always has to adapt, but if a genius keeps going and 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 going, and a prodigy is running and running and running, still trying to figure out the last thing the genius just did, the genius is always going to win. But let's see what Hoopsandanime has to say. Yeah.
Self-type or world type. These aren't just buzzwords in Blue Lock. They're the foundation of the entire series, shaping the characters, the matches, and even the story's core philosophy. But here's the kicker. The line between genius and prodigy isn't as clear as you might think. Why does...
Oh, okay. So, okay, never mind. Okay, so genius versus prodigy. That's another thing. I'll quickly get into this before I let him cook. I agree with that too. I think the line between genius and prodigy and in self-type and world type is going to blend, if not has already blended. If you'll remember, Isagi is currently classifying himself as a talented learner, but from the light novels to early in the narrative, Isagi's implied to have an almost divine brain. The man's able to see the field in ways nobody else is. Heck, even metavision is something that's implied that he can only do because his brain's actually at that level. Same thing for Hiyori, same thing for every other metavision user, period, but obviously Isagi especially. His brain is unique. He has, in light novels, he's implied to have like some sort of superhuman spatial awareness. The guy can sense it's going to rain, and not sense as in like you can smell, I forget what the chemical is in the air, that like we as humans have been evolved in order to smell rain and stuff like that. No, like he sensed it was going to rain while like inside or something. His spatial awareness is stupid. That's a genius level ability that not everybody has. And the same thing for someone like Rin. His destructive nature specifically relies on a talented learner or prodigy style of understanding an opponent and breaking them. Especially in the U20 match, it's not so emphasized in the Uber or in the PXG versus BM match so far. But if you'll remember, what did Destroyer Rin, who was a genius and running off pure ego in Ubers do, or not in Ubers, in the U20 do, he brought out the best of his opponent and destroyed it through analysis and counterbalancing. What does that mean? That means that's a prodigy kind of mentality. So like, even Kaiser is implied to have a genius-like ability, not just in terms of his brain and stuff like that, like Isagi has, but also in Kaiser Impact. Isagi looks at Kaiser Impact, and everyone else looks at Kaiser Impact, and is like, even if we trained for 1,000 years, we couldn't do that. That's clearly a genius-level thing. So, like, there is this natural dichotomy back and forth. The line, it's solid enough right now, it's splitting the world up right now, but it's already blurred, and it's something only going to get more blurry as Isagi realizes what I believe is his true ego, because and I've seen other videos on this, and I'll probably react to those too, but I, like many others, don't actually believe the current Isagi we're seeing is actually true ego Isagi. I don't think so. I think it's an approximation of something, but I don't think it's a true ego, anywhere near, because it's still not genius enough. But
does ego talk about talent like it's a weapon? How does the genius prodigy dynamic create rivalries that drive characters to evolve? And most importantly, where do players like Isagi, Baru, and Nagi fit into all of this?
Isagi, if we're talking just solid classification, Baru and Nagi have already been confirmed to be geniuses. Isagi's already been confirmed to be a prodigy. However, if we're talking about bleeding, I'd say Baru's actually perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Which is weird to say, but also he's one who operates in a way specifically counter to soccer. He is like the balance point, I'd say, between Nagi and Isagi in terms of the whole dichotomy between genius and talented genius. I keep saying talented learner because that's how it commonly gets translated, but genius and prodigy. Nagi's the genius, Isagi's the prodigy. And the reason I say Baru's the counterbalance between is Baru from a young age was dominant in soccer, and he had his curve shot, and he had all that. He's naturally been that dude since a young age, but he's also very heavily trained. He also understands the sport really, really well. He's built his tech appropriately using actual tactical skills, and as Ego describes in the U20, Baru's so effective because he actively counteracts what is good in soccer, to the point where he says the better you are at soccer or the better you know the game, the harder of a matchup Baru's going to be for you. But that sounds more prodigy-esque because it's using information that already exists. Someone like Nagi is wilding out. Always wilding out. Almost never, whenever Nagi scores, he's wilding out. So very clearly, he's the furthest, and dare I say, in all of Blue Lock, he's the furthest, even more than Rin. He's the furthest on the genius spectrum. He's all instinct, all creativity, all that, even more than Shido. Meanwhile, Baru's a nice middle ground, and Isagi is far to the prodigy spectrum, but like not overly far. I still see some genius traits in that young blue-haired boy. Let's see.
Well, we have to look at what is talent in Blue Lock. Is it something you're born with, something you grind every day to perfect? Ego himself gives us the answer, and it's surprisingly simple. Talent isn't just skill, it's the ability to demonstrate your abilities when it matters most. This means two things. First, being naturally gifted doesn't mean squat if you can't show up when the pressure's on. And second, grinding every day to develop a skill doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to use it effectively. That's why Blue Lock isn't just a training ground, it's a crucible. Take Isagi, for example. He started as one of the weakest players, but he's risen to challenge the best because he knows how to adapt, analyze, and evolve. Ego's system doesn't reward just talent, it rewards those who know how to use it to crush their opponents. We often hear the terms genius and prodigy tossed around in sports, but Blue Lock gives them an entirely new depth. Geniuses aren't just talented, they're disruptors. They break the mold, forcing the game itself to adapt to their style. Think about Nagi. His traps are so elegant and effortless that he doesn't just control the ball, he controls the rhythm of the game. He creates moments that seem impossible, and you can't help but ask yourself, how did he do that? Then there's Baru, the king, whose playstyle screams dominance. He's not reacting to the game, he's dictating it. Geniuses are unique in that their brilliance feels instinctive. Almost like
Once again, I'd say, well, no. He's right. Once again, Baro is classified as a genius, and obviously Baro is a kind of game leader. But ultimately, we even know for a fact, it's funny that he brought up that panel specific of Baro. Because what does Baro go to do? He goes to do his own genius thing, running and playing in his own way. Figures out that doesn't work. So he does an adaptation of his own genius thing, and then just chases Isagi and Rin. Who are what? In this case, during the U20 for a majority of it, until his original ego unlocks, Rin's playing as a prodigy. So is Isagi. They're obviously playing by mental. So Baro takes a more mental route by just following them and then exploiting the whole in that, which is the more genius aspect of it. So even that's why I say Baro's that blend. He's that mix. He's that balance, as the whole thing should be. Let's see.
they're rewriting the rules in real time. Let's flip the script and talk about prodigies. If geniuses are the artists, prodigies are the engineers. They take what a genius creates and find a way to make it functional, repeatable, and sometimes even better. Isagi is the quintessential prodigy. He doesn't.
Oh, and that's another fun thing, right? Once again, going to talk about how Loki has been classified as this monstrous, inhuman genius. Isagi, by indirectly, well, very directly, he calls him a pace merchant. We've all made the memes and jokes about that. He calls him a pace merchant. But guess what? That's Loki taking what he's good at, taking his talent, and making goals and doing what he needs to do in a complete, logical, and reproducible fashion. Same thing with Shigiri, another genius. They're using their speed in different ways, but still they're doing the same thing effectively over and over and over again. Showing what? A prodigy-like mindset, the engineers, creating that solid, reproducible formula. That's why someone like Loki looks at what Nagi does in his game against BM and is like, that's not going to be reproducible. He's done. He's trash. He's garbage. He's doo-doo water. But we've never heard Loki take a look at what Noah's crazy goals, or in his use of his ambidextrosity, or Loki in his speed, or Shigiri in his speed, and be like, oh, that's trash. He'd never be able to reproduce that goal again. Because ultimately, they are still using that sort of prodigy mindset of, hey, I need to figure out how to use my talent, my ability, my unique God-given gift in my own unique way, repeatedly in a solid, realistic manner. They do that. They do be cooking. Let's see.
Doesn't just watch a genius like Nagi dominate the field. He breaks down the logic behind it, identifies the formula, and incorporates it into his own playstyle. He's like a scientist, constantly experimenting and evolving based on what he observes. The difference here is crucial. While geniuses rely on intuition and originality, prodigies thrive on adaptability and analysis. Where a genius might create a once-in-a-lifetime move, a prodigy will find a way to replicate it and make it their own. And this dynamic isn't just for show, it's the backbone of Blue Lock's narrative. Every match, every rivalry is shaped by this push and pull between creation and adaptation. But here's where it gets really interesting. Prodigies and geniuses aren't mutually exclusive. Players like Rin Itoshi blur the lines. Rin has the genius level instinct to create singularity points, moments that defy logic, and the prodigy-like ability to adapt and learn from others. That duality makes him one of the most dangerous players on the field.
And another thing about Rin that's very interesting is that though admittedly, actually no, I already talked about how it's not really hard to define. Never mind.
And the best part? This dynamic sets up some of the most compelling conflicts in the series. Isagi, as a prodigy, is constantly chasing the brilliance of geniuses like Rin and Baru, but his adaptability forces them to evolve too. It's a cycle of growth that keeps the story fresh and the matches unpredictable. Now let's build on that with the concept of ego types, because this is where Blue Lock really turns into a chess match. Ego types aren't just personality traits, they're the foundation of how each player approaches the game. It's like a blueprint for their decision-making, strengths, and even weaknesses. There are two main ego types, self-types and world types. Self-types are all about personal expression. They play for themselves, prioritizing their own desires and vision over everything else. Baru is the textbook example. His obsession with being the king isn't just a mindset, it's a strategy. Every move he makes on the field reinforces his dominance. Even when he's not scoring, he's creating an environment where everyone has to adjust to him. Another great self-type is Nagi. His creativity is off the charts. He doesn't just play the game, he redefines it with every touch. But here's the catch. Self-types can sometimes become too focused on their own vision, which makes them vulnerable to players who can exploit that singular focus. On the flip side, we have world types. These players excel by analyzing their surroundings and adapting to the game as it unfolds. Isagi is the ultimate world type. He's constantly scanning the field, piecing together the puzzle, and finding ways to outmaneuver even the most brilliant players. World types thrive on logic and strategy, which makes them incredibly versatile. Kaiser, with his calculated precision and ability to dominate the field through sheer efficiency, is another prime example. But here's where it gets even more layered. On top of being a self-type or world type, players can also fall into freedom or restriction categories. Freedom types are like wild cards, they thrive in chaotic environments. Think of players like Chigiri, whose blistering speed allows him to turn any situation into an opportunity. Restriction types, on the other hand,
Also, characters like I've been going. He's just been cooking. He's been cooking. So I like been making just silent noises. But for the freedom self types, Bacho is another fantastic example of that. He does literally, that's his whole character after a certain point. Like, I want to do this, so I do this because I do though. And then he's another good example. I'd say he's even a better example than Chigiri, if solely for the fact that like Chigiri's narrative is still somewhat built around logic. And I guess Bacho's is too. His is reproducible. But Bacho's whole narrative is about his whole self-expression and reincorporating his own insanity back into the game. Chigiri is more so being retroactively highlighted as a genius just because of how geniuses have been defined. Meanwhile, Bacho, he's always kind of been maybe a little bit, but let's see.
Hand excel in structured systems. They find ways to break out of those constraints and create something extraordinary. Charles is a great example. He gathers data on the field and uses it to make the most unpredictable passes imaginable. The beauty of the system is how it creates unique interactions. Take a world-type prodigy like Isagi going up against a self-type genius like Baru. Isagi's adaptability clashes with Baru's sheer dominance, forcing both players to evolve. Or think about how Nagi, a freedom self-type, thrives in a chaotic match but struggles when he's boxed into a rigid system. And here's the kicker. Ego types aren't set in stone. Players can evolve. Isagi, for instance, started as a pure world type, but began incorporating elements of self-typing as he developed his ego. Similarly, Baru started as a self-type with a narrow focus, but learned to adapt when forced into a team dynamic. This evolution keeps the series dynamic and the characters unpredictable. Baru's genius lies in his ability to create singularity plays that are almost impossible to predict. Isagi, as a prodigy, breaks that down, studies it, and finds a way to counter it. But that clash creates tension. Baru gets frustrated by Isagi's logic, and Isagi struggles to keep up with Baru's instinct-driven playstyle. But here's the thing, this friction is what pushes them both to evolve. Isagi developed metavision by observing Kaiser, another prodigy, while Nagi reignited his creative spark by learning from Rin and Baru. These rivalries aren't just about winning matches, they're about personal growth. Let's shift gears to one of Blue Lock's most fascinating case studies, Yukimiya Kenyu. Now, on the surface, Yukimiya doesn't always get the spotlight, but is...
Before you say that, what would Yukimiya be? Self-type genius. I'd say self-type genius. Because like Yukimiya, I mean, his plays are somewhat centered around logic, but he's once again all about scoring for himself, being by himself, and very specifically, he's literally antithetical to a team from his introduction to now. He very specifically, he only uses the team to fake out other defenders. He's very much I will run down the field by myself kind of guy. Very similar to Bachira. So yeah, he is a he is a freedom style genius wholesale. He in fact hates restriction. That's why he keeps fumbling his bag, quote unquote.
His journey gives us a unique lens to understand how talent, originality, and identity intertwine in the world of Blue Lock. First, let's talk about Yukimiya's seed. Every player in Blue Lock has this metaphorical seed, a combination of their innate potential and the life experiences that shape their mindset. For Yukimiya, that seed is rooted in an obsession with speed and individuality. He's not just fast, his playstyle is laser-focused on one-on-one duels. It's a pure expression of his desire to control his own destiny, to break through obstacles by sheer force of will. But here's where it gets complicated. Yukimiya's story takes a sharp turn when he discovers his vision-threatening illness. Suddenly, time isn't just a factor, it's his enemy. He's racing against the clock, not just in matches, but in his career as a whole. This pressure transforms his mindset, making him impatient and hyper-focused on immediate results. He develops a play style that mirrors this urgency, powerful, aggressive, and direct. Every dribble, every shot screams, "I need to make this count." Let's break down his skill set. Yukimiya's dribbling style is unique because it combines raw power with precise speed. He doesn't just try to evade defenders, he forces his way past them. It's almost confrontational. Then there's his shooting technique. His signature sword screw shot tricks the goalkeepers into committing to one side before the ball spins in another direction. It's flashy, risky, and like his overall game, designed to end things quickly. But here's the thing. This hyper-aggressive style has its limits. In the Manshine City match, we see Yukimiya hit a wall. His impatience and single-mindedness clash with Isagi's calculated approach. It's like watching a sprinter trying to win a marathon. Yukimiya's raw talent is undeniable, but his lack of adaptability exposes a key weakness. And this is where his evolution begins. After clashing with Isagi, Yukimiya starts to question his approach. He realizes that his obsession with speed and individuality, while powerful, has also been holding him back. It's a moment of awakening. Instead of rushing toward his goals, he decides to give his ego the time it needs to grow. This shift in mindset changes everything. Yukimiya isn't just trying to win matches anymore, he's trying to redefine himself as a player. This transformation is monumental because it highlights one of Blue Lock's core themes. Originality isn't static. A player's identity isn't set in stone. It's shaped by their experiences, their struggles, and their willingness to evolve. Yukimiya's decision to embrace patience doesn't just change his game, it changes his trajectory. What makes Yukimiya's journey so compelling is that it reflects a universal truth about talent. It's not just about what you're born with, it's about how you cultivate it. Here's why Kenishiro's writing is genius. The talent system isn't just a mechanic for the matches, it's a lens through which we understand the characters. In most shonen, power systems are tools for conflict. In Blue Lock, the power system is the story. Talent, ego type.
Though I would say in the two he showed, in JJK and Hunter x Hunter, the power system is also definitely a tool for character expansion and elaboration. Specifically in those two. A series where I'd say the power system is typically just used for conflict is Dragon Ball. I love the key power system, but it has its moments where it like does stuff for characters, but like it's mainly for conflict.
Types and originality are directly tied to the character's ambitions, struggles, and growth. They're not just tools for understanding the matches, they're tools for understanding the players themselves. This is what makes Blue Lock so unique. It's not just a sports manga, it's a deep dive into what it means to strive for greatness, to face your limits, and to redefine what's possible. And there you have it. Everything you need to know about the genius and prodigy dynamic, the evolution of talent, and how it all ties into the characters we've come to love in Blue Lock. Before I end this video, I would like to shout out the Reddit user ZealousIdealMess6678 for the basis for this explanation. Don't forget to comment. I'd love to hear your take on the Prodigy Genius duality or anything else that stood out. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more deep dives and discussions on all things Blue Lock. I'm Hoopsandanime, and that's about it.
A fantastic video, fantastic editing, fantastic breakdown, fantastic discussion, fantastic examples, fantastic everything. Man, I gotta see if this guy has other videos. I'm gonna react. But overall, a W video. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, though, please leave. No, I won't do that. That'd be too easy. Leave duality. Well, then again, that may be including. Leave duality of man. I think I've done that one before, but leave duality of man in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off.